Andrew Sullivan wrote in Newsweek how Obama's long game will outsmart his critics. Oh, interesting. So I read it and I found it to be interesting. I agreed with the first third of it, where he explained that right-wing critics of Obama are literally non-factual, and he has the facts to back it up. For example, did Obama create jobs or did he lose jobs? Well, the first 12 months he lost jobs because of the Bush economy. It's crystal clear. We've shown you that graph a million times. You see the economy dip and then you see it come back up. And since it's come back up under Obama's watch, Andrew Sullivan says 2.4 million jobs have been created. The last number I saw was 2.7 million jobs created. Does Obama deserve credit for that? Absolutely. Blaming the deficit on Obama? Ridiculous. Bush created over $5 trillion in deficits he added to them when he had been handed surpluses. By comparison, Obama's deficits are tiny, and he had to deal with terrible unemployment and a terrible recession that he was handed by Bush. That is absolutely factual, and he's absolutely right about that. The second third, I agree with, but don't give him any credit for. He says, now remember, Andrew Sullivan is a conservative. He's a conservative that wound up supporting Obama just because the Republican Party went crazy, for which I don't blame him. I was in the same boat in terms of, not that I was a conservative, but that I supported Obama because the Republicans were a horrible, horrible alternative. So, well, what's his critique there, or what's his, actually, in his case, compliments? He says, well, you got to understand, this health care is not socialist at all. In fact, this is the same health care pushed by the incredibly conservative Heritage Foundation, by Newt Gingrich, Mitt Romney, and even Richard Nixon, that it's nearly identical to Nixon's proposals. Now, in Andrew Sullivan's world, that's a great compliment to President Obama. In my world, that's a disaster. Am I supposed to pat him on the back for having the same health care plan as Richard frickin' Nixon? Well, the problem is it didn't change the health care system at all, which Andrew Sullivan acknowledges. There's no public option. What there is, and there's nothing to say, hey, you know what, you can't get it from private insurance. Sullivan brags about, hey, private insurance is, if anything, strengthened by Obama's health care program because they're mandated to get more people into private insurance. I don't view that as a good thing. I view that as a bad thing. I don't view that as progressive. I view it as deeply right-wing. Now, there's universal health care. That part is good. It's a nuanced bill, and it has ups and downs. But to brag about how right-wing it is doesn't really convince me that Obama's been a terrific president. Furthermore, he says Obama's cut spending, and he wants to cut entitlements, so-called entitlements, even more. He cut Medicare, and Andrew Sullivan doesn't mention this, but is thrilled about the grand bargain. He mentions the grand bargain, but he doesn't mention the effects of that. In the grand bargain, they would cut Social Security, and they would cut Medicare more. Well, again, if you're a progressive, I don't know what you're all ecstatic about Andrew Sullivan's piece for. Hey, my president wants to cut Social Security and did Nixon's health care plan. He's such a great progressive. That makes no sense whatsoever. So now the third piece of Andrew Sullivan's long story is a part that I totally and utterly disagree with. He says, well, look, he should be given credit on civil liberties, even though he has done indefinite detention of U.S. citizens. Not that he has already practiced it, but he has signed it into law. He says because there's a signing statement saying he won't do it. And yeah, I know, the drone strikes and the Iraq war, which had dubious, constitutionality, and I thought he should have gone through Congress, but I actually agreed with the Libyan war 10 times more than Andrew Sullivan did. In fact, I was one of President Obama's few supporters on that issue. But is that questionable how he did it with executive power? Yes. The signing statements? Yes. But Andrew Sullivan says, no, it's okay. Forget all of those. Forget warrantless wiretapping. He didn't torture people. Well, is he not merciful? Okay. I didn't know what a great guy he was. Wow, he didn't torture people. Huge credit to Obama. Not nearly good enough when he has maintained 90% of George Bush's horrible civil liberties abuses and even added some on top, unfortunately. And then he also gives him big credit for, well, he stabilized the economy. Look at this. He gave the bankers everything, and so the economy's fixed now, and they've paid back most of the TARP money. As we've talked about on the program, it's not about the TARP money. It's about the $7 trillion that the Fed gave those guys in interest-free loans, basically, okay? And it wasn't that you shouldn't give the banks anything. It's not that it wasn't to stabilize the economy. We weren't against that. We're not crazy right-wingers. We said something incredibly reasonable. Why don't you attach some strings to it? So that, hey, you know what? If they go back to making record profits as they are now, why don't they share that with their investors, the guys who saved them from bankruptcy. That would be us, the American taxpayer, through TARP and through the Fed. But he didn't do any of that. Instead, the extraction continues from the banks. The crazy derivative gambling continues unabated, didn't get fixed at all. And this, Andrew Sullivan thinks was a good thing? Oh, hell no. No way, not even close. It's greatly misleading to tell people that is in any way a victory for President Obama. In the end, I look at it and I think, what is there to celebrate? It's not that President Obama didn't do anything right. He mentions the 2 Supreme Court justices. You got to give that to President Obama, and I do all the time. And on some issues, as I mentioned, I give the president more credit than Andrew Sullivan does. But when you look at the totality of it, it's certainly no great accomplishments. It shores up things in the short term. And then even if you think as a moderate Republican that Andrew Sullivan is, that you like the moderate Republican President Obama, you certainly can't give him credit for being progressive in any way, shape, or form. And that leads to the issue that Andrew Sullivan missed entirely. What he didn't talk about at all, which was the central promise of President Obama's campaign. I'm going to change the way Washington works. What has he done in that regard? Zip, nada, zilch, campaign finance reform. You know, I tweeted about this article, and then, of course, the Obama bots rushed in to defend. And I said, okay, so what has he done? I asked that question to Sullivan and the Obama bots. Well, what has he done on campaign finance reform? Here are the initial couple of answers. Oh, you're so dumb. Andrew Sullivan called you critics like you dumb. Oh, wow, that's a very substantive response. I appreciate that. Why do they say that? Because they don't have an answer, because he didn't propose any legislation. He didn't do anything on it. His central promise, nothing on it. And then they come back and say, oh, you don't understand, Jack. He's got such a tough Congress to deal with. Are you kidding me? Bush, with incredibly narrow margins, got almost everything he wanted out of his Congress. On the other hand, Obama, for a while, had 60 senators, overwhelming majority in the House, and he said, oh, I can't, I don't have enough, give me 80 senators. But put all that aside, he didn't even propose any campaign finance. It wasn't on his agenda. Public financing of elections, no way. Cracking down on lobbyists, no way. What did he do? Well, and then finally, someone gave me something substantive. They said, oh, but remember, during his State of the Union, he had one line where he kind of criticized the Supreme Court for Citizens United. Wow. And what did he do in reaction to that? What were his policy proposals? Nothing. Okay? Gee, I wonder why progressives are disappointed with President Obama. I can't quite figure it out. Maybe that's because I'm such a dumb critic and Andrew Sullivan's such a genius, right? Finally, what Andrew Sullivan is most wrong about. He says that President Obama plays the long game and that his critics don't understand it because they're looking at short-term politics, when in fact it is the exact opposite. Look, President Obama plays a short game. Oh, the banks are collapsing. What am I going to do? Okay, just give them money, give them money. But Mr. President, if you don't fix the derivatives, you don't fix the leverage situation, you don't fix the rating agencies, they're just going to collapse later. In fact, all you do is your stress test where Tim Geithner pretends they're healthy when they're not. All it does is shore them up in the short term and leaving a long-term disaster. But President Obama just wants to get reelected. That's a long game? That's not a long game. That's short-term politics. You do it on any issue, on health care. I covered more people, universal health care. But, Mr. President, you didn't change the health care system at all. We're still reliant on private insurance that can charge us anything they want. We're at their mercy. Yeah, we'll worry about that later. Historic health care reform, wave the banner, I did historic reform. He's playing a short-term game, not a long game. And on civil liberties is the perfect example. Well, look, you know what? I don't do torture. But, Mr. President, if you don't prosecute people for doing torture earlier, then it's just going to be a matter of opinion. And the next administration can come in and go, well, since there were no prosecutions, I guess it's not illegal. President Obama didn't want to do it. I want to do it. It's just a difference in policy. And on the indefinite detentions, National Defense Authorization Act, another perfect example. We can definitely, indefinitely detain U.S. citizens, but in his signing statement says, I would prefer not to. My administration won't do it. It's a short-term gain. But in the long term, the next administration, or if President Obama wants to change his mind, he comes in and they say, you know what? President Obama signed into law indefinite detention possibility of U.S. citizens, let alone non-U.S. citizens. Obama doesn't play the long game. And that's why the article, honestly, really frustrated me. It's because President Obama is going to look at this and his advisors, they're going to be like, see, we knew knew it. We knew we were such geniuses. Now the cover story of Newsweek shows that we are. You see, we're playing the long game. And we got this thing figured out. We're smarter than our critics. We're so clever. Oh, I'm so glad Andrew Sullivan appreciates how clever we are. And the establishment media will go along with it, and everybody will pat Obama on the back and say, oh, yeah, you don't get it. But listen to the criticism I just gave, okay? Issue by issue. He's not playing the long game. He doesn't have something figured out. He's not playing three-dimensional chess. He's playing short-term politics, and it is nowhere near progressive, let alone successful.